Good evening and welcome to the Directors Roundtable. My name is Donnie Rose, and this is all part of your Harmony University experience. We're so glad you're with us tonight here on beautiful Belmont's campus. This is our panel, and this is our wonderful audience. We'll do some introductions, but first, could we just acknowledge these wonderful gentlemen and give it up for our friends?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Donnie. I think what we'll do to start off is each of us will introduce ourselves, tell you a little bit about our directing background and what we're currently doing. And that way you'll get to know a little bit about us, and then hopefully we'll get to find out a little bit more about you. My name is Gary Steinkamp. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. I've been a director for about 25 years. I'm currently directing a small ensemble called A Cappella Syndicate. There's 19 of us. We just started a year ago. The chorus is striving to be more like a barbershop quartet, so that I'm trying to direct myself out of a job, so that they can stand on their own and perform without somebody having his back to the audience. It's a fantastic little group with its own little nest of problems because of the smallness of it and because of the kind of work that we want to do out in the community. It allows us to do smaller venue performances instead of the big theaters, but that tends to be sort of the trend of the day for us in my community in Phoenix, in the retirement community. Steve?
Yes, my name is Steve Armstrong. I direct the Toronto Northern Lights Chorus. I started directing for the first time when I was 18. I directed the Sweet Adeline Chorus, and I'm sad to say that's 35 years ago. And I've been directing most of the time since then, choruses at all sorts of different levels. And the most successful of those, of course, has been Toronto. We've won a number of medals, and we were fortunate enough in 2013 to win the championship. It's a chorus that's a little bit different approach to contests than many others. We enjoy doing the unexpected, and often that means there's some comedy involved, but we also really enjoy dramatic, passionate ballads, and often we'll do something that features both of those sorts of things. On the smaller side, for a chorus with contest success, I mean, obviously larger than what Gary's describing, but we've ranged from 40 to, as our highest was 70 members on the contest stage. So, you know, we've experienced a lot of the same sorts of issues to do with size that maybe many of you have with your courses.
Rob.
Cool. My name is Rob Mance. I direct a chorus called Central Standard, and we're also kind of a small to medium-sized chorus, kind of, I guess, 30 when I started with the group and 50 now. I guess I'm sort of in the finishing stages of my doctorate in choral conducting at the University of Kansas. I've got a double master's degree in choral conducting and voice pedagogy from Westminster Choir College as well. And I'm just starting we're just in the process of chartering a new Sweet Adeline's chorus in Kansas City called Vocal Standard, going to be kind of a sister-brother chorus to Central Standard. So.
Nice.
And Rob's chorus is the current silver medalist chorus. Fantastic.
Right.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Very cool. Very cool. So what we wanted to do tonight is to sort of share with you any of our experiences that we've had with the choruses that we've directed, and it could be in membership, it could be in music, it could be in administration, could be in anything that you want us to discuss. We don't want to sit here and just talk about ourselves over the whole evening. We like to know a little bit about you. Our program tonight has no particular format to it. That isn't like we have a list of things we wanted to talk to you about or that we have an agenda. We're really just here to share ideas with you and to share some of your questions and concerns. Jerry, you said you had some questions for us. What do you got in mind?
I do. So the Kansas City chapter is going through a transformation right now, and as many of you have come from other chapters, there are there's a cultural difference between some of your experiences and kind of the cultures of our experience as you become medalists and that kind of stuff. And so if you could share with us some of the culture changes from a perspective not of where you were in the middle of the track, all up into the medals, but actually how you put yourself on the international stage and change that culture into that environment. You see what I'm saying? Because I don't believe that it's actually a nugget. I think it's like a pile of gold that got you to where you are. So that's kind of the perspective in which I'm asking the question. So to clarify, if you could share with us your beginning stages of your culture in development to where you are today.
Cool. For me, I sort of lucked out and landed in it. When I was old enough to finally sing in the chorus, I was a very young member of the chorus called the Phoenicians, and the Phoenicians were already third place medalists. So when I entered into the mix at the age of 15. It was already I just thought it was always like that for everybody. So I didn't know that there were other problems or issues that other groups handled. Our issues were trying to keep order in the room when we were trying to sing, or even between the singing. When the singing stopped, all the talking started, and it seemed like that's where all the chaos was, and that seemed to be where most of the fun was also. So my experience isn't like many others. I'm afraid I had the golden note already in me when I was brought into it as a young lad. So
yeah, I mean, each of us, the choruses that we currently direct, those choruses started from scratch with the intention of being, a high-level musical achievement. But I've directed some other choruses, and so I think back. The first really wonderful chorus I directed with the Scarborough Dukes of Harmony, but it was kind of at the end of their run of winning medals. They won a couple championships and then medals for a while, and then I directed them in the contest the first time they didn't win a medal, and that was a lot of fun. And then I left that, and I learned a whole lot of things from that experience, because it wasn't it didn't have the success that I was expecting me to have, and that I really valued at that point. And then I directed a chorus called the East York Barbershoppers, who years ago had gone international a few times and won medals. This is back in the 50s. We qualified with a very low score to get to international, and our goal was just to beat somebody, and we did. But I learned that, in contrast to what the stresses and the pressure I'd put on myself in Scarborough, to be something I wasn't and live up to certain expectations, I was just a little bit more relaxed. And if I don't get something done this week, that's okay, we'll do it next week. And I learned as part of that the week-to-week experience of the guys has to be a joyful. They have to really enjoy. Everyone has choices with how they spend their time. And there's a certain amount of loyalty that comes if you've been with the chapter for a few years, but that only gets you so far. And so I took that lesson with me into the Northern Lights. And when we started that, anytime that attendance is lower or the rehearsals start to feel like they're getting a little bit routine, I force myself to take a look at what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And sadly, most of the time I realize is what I was doing that was causing those issues. So those experiences really helped me a lot to be more successful in this experience. And we've developed a pretty inspiring culture. I think the guys really enjoy being there, but it's still, you can get into ruts and just kind of follow the same template, rehearsal after rehearsal, and then you go, oh, hold on a minute. I'm the cause of the routine feeling. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't know if that helps at all, but yeah. Rob?
Yeah, I think from my perspective as a director, I think the focus of rehearsals has shifted dramatically in the last 5 years. So, not too long before I took over as director of Central Standard, I had finished a grad degree where, they were looking at pumping out music professionals to work with professional choirs, and I mean, almost to the point of like, everything was very like almost militaristic. I don't know if that's too strong a term, but I mean, it was like clockwork, and so when I started with Central Standard, if you asked me, okay, Rob, what is the objective for the rehearsal? I would say, okay, this musical objective, that musical objective, that musical objective, that musical objective, that musical objective, and that one too. That's what we're going to do tonight. And I figured out after a little while, what's missing in all that is the people. Fast forward to, I'd say it really has kind of come full circle maybe in the last year and a half or so. You ask me, what is the musical objective at any rehearsal? The number one objective for every single rehearsal we have is, did the guys have an amazing time tonight? If nothing else is accomplished in the night, I consider that a very successful rehearsal. Normally other things do get accomplished, but at the top of the list is, did my guys have an incredible time tonight? I think it's that shift in focus. We need to realize that, our guys, we're talking about volunteer choruses here. These are guys who are giving up a night of their lives where they could be spending it with their family. They could be spending it in another hobby. They could be spending it doing anything that they want. Nobody said, hey, you know what? I really want to go to chorus rehearsal tonight so I can get like beat over the head for singing flat or something, right? Said nobody ever, right? So our guys are coming to have an amazing time, maybe a release from the daily pressures of life, maybe a chance to have an awesome time with some buddies. And I think it's through that prism of, are my guys having just an awesome time, that then we can accomplish other musical objectives. But those come second after we make sure that we're looking after our membership. I think the other thing that I'll say is it's important for every chorus to know who you are, to absolutely know who you are, to be true to that. Don't try to be something that you're not. And definitely do not try to be something to everybody. We're not going to be successful. Right? So if we try to serve everybody, if we try to make everybody happy, that's probably not going to go very well. So we need to know who we are, know who we're not, be true to ourselves, and then live that identity, joyously live that identity. And, so the identity of my chorus, it might surprise you if you asked every single member in my chorus, what is the most important thing to you about Central Standard? I'm pretty sure you'd arrive at a grand total of 0 people that would say contest.
Wow.
So.
But that becomes an evolution, right? Or.
Yeah, I think, so part of it is, having the vision at the beginning, but part of it is allowing the process to develop, and you kind of figure out who you are as you grow, as a group, as an ensemble, as you take in new people. They add to the richness of your ensemble, and so yeah, it's definitely an evolutionary process. And I think what we found out is that our chorus is a family. I mean, we refer to each other as a family. We probably spend more time hanging out together outside of rehearsal than we do in rehearsal. And it's not because we spend an insignificant amount of time rehearsing, right? We're all best friends with each other. Somebody's like, hey, I'm not doing anything tonight. Who wants to go out here? And like 15 of us will show up and just hang out together. And so we've just developed kind of this culture of where we're a family. We don't want to let each other down, because you don't want to let your family members down. And that, I think, above all else, has become kind of like probably what most people would refer to as what we love most about this group that we belong to. And I think that's maybe why a lot of us feel very passionately about giving into this group and why we feel strongly about it.
Cool. Nice. Jerry, did that?
It did. It answered my direct question. It caused a couple others, but I don't want to steal all the time.
A couple of other questions pop up. Yeah.
I have a follow-up to that. So when you get into one of these ruts, what do you do to pull yourself out of it?
Well, it's very easy when planning a rehearsal to think I need to this amount of work on this song, this amount on this song, I need to do some visual work, put a section rehearsal in there, and you have all these blocks of time that you want to fit in there. It's easy for that to kind of become a template. And then, now I've got to plan next week's rehearsal. Well, it's kind of the same as this. I'll just rearrange the pieces a little bit. And then all of a sudden you find like 4 or 5 weeks have gone by and it's kind of been the same. And so then I'll try to think of, well, let's do something that really kind of changes it up. Maybe we'll do some music we haven't done for a while. Maybe we'll have David McEachern, our visual guy, do a different sort of exercise with the guys. Maybe we'll teach some tags, you know, just anything you can do that kind of changes the pattern in a way. So that you don't want you want the guys to come to rehearsal thinking, I wonder what's going to happen tonight. I don't know exactly, but I know it's going to be an amazing time, as Rob said. And if it starts to become this predictable pattern, even if the pieces are rearranged a little bit, there's a monotony that sets in. It's a challenge. It's hard as a leader to try to think of a creative twist on things. And sometimes we'll try things that I have no idea if this is going to work or not, but I kind of know that it's going to be pretty successful just because it's different. You know, and that in itself has great value.
Right.
So try. You know, don't be afraid to try an idea. Try something different. You know, invite the chorus to give you permission to try something different. You know, and just experiment and take note of what works and what doesn't.
So, Steve, it sounds like you're doing that as Steve, the director. Do you guys employ, that's the word, a program vice president like we used to have 5, 10, 15 years ago? The society had that program vice president that did that?
We do not.
You don't? Does anybody?
We do not.
Are you all three kind of like the program vice president, you know, the role of the switching it up? You all three do that?
You know, we consider it to be a rehearsal as opposed to a chapter meeting night. I remember the first chapter that I joined, there would always be program, pick up quartets, we'd up and sing, and Rush's quartets would sing. We don't do that. So the onus to make the evening interesting falls in the musical leadership. No, I'll consult. You know, I have a wonderful associate director, Jordan Travis, and we'll chat, and I have some fantastically smart people in my chorus, and I really seek their opinions on things. But most of the planning of how the evening's going to go comes from me.
Right.
Yeah. Same for me. I think it's really, I mean, it's so common for us as directors to get into, you know, I don't know if slumps is like too big of a word, or just times when we're not feeling it, you know. I like to say the director is the loneliest position on earth, right? Sometimes doesn't it feel like it's you against the universe, and nobody other than directors knows what it feels like. If you try to talk about that subject to chorus members, they're like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. But us as directors, we know that feeling of us against the universe. And so I think doing anything that helps recharge our batteries to get us fired up, we need to continually invest and reinvest in those opportunities, and it can be anything. Obviously, everybody in this room's taken a big one by spending a week at HU, right? Go to district schools. A really awesome coach is coming to coach the chorus down the road. Go spend a day watching that happen. Take a conducting lesson or a voice lesson from somebody at the local college. Like, go to a spa and get a massage. Like, whatever it takes to just get you fired back up again. It's, you know, we can keep doing the same thing expecting different results, or we can do something to feed ourselves and nourish ourselves and break ourselves out of that, because nobody else is going to do it for us, probably not at least. When things get monotonous a little bit in my chorus rehearsals is when I think back and realize, oh, I've really underplanned the last few rehearsals. You know, I've kind of had a plan, But man, I haven't really thought this out to like, this is not my A+ level work, right? You know, I've given it a good go, but did I really plan an amazing evening? No. So was it a surprise that I didn't get an amazing result? No. I got out of it what I put into it, you know? And so be uber planned. Record rehearsals, listen to your rehearsals. So I know many of us record rehearsals, and then it's sometimes scary to listen to them. But if you face fear in its face and take it on, man, we find some things that kind of catch us by surprise. You know, maybe things that we don't hear in real time. And when we hear those things, man, do we get motivated to fix them, and we think about ways to address them way ahead of it, that we don't have to do this on the fly.
Rob, if I can just jump in.
Please.
That is huge. You know, you think the role of a coach, the coach has to listen and diagnose, come up with an approach and a solution, and do it right away and get a result. But as directors, we have the advantage that we're going to be there every week. And so if we record that and then go and listen to it each week and notice the things that we did that worked, those things that didn't, listen to what the chorus is doing, see what problems still exist, and as Rob said, figure out a strategy to try to fix that. And then the next week, if that doesn't work, do it again and listen to it and think about another strategy. We've got 7 days in between each rehearsal to diagnose and plan, unlike a coach who has to do it right on the fly. So exploit that.
Yeah, I think some of my worst rehearsals are when I've come in with like a generic plan of what's going to happen that night and not a whole bunch more. Some of the best rehearsals are when I've listened to the last several weeks of rehearsal recordings, and I hear this issue and that issue and that issue, and now I'm going to use this warm-up exercise to address that one, and that warm-up exercise to address that one. And so the warm-up's not random, it's really targeted to the things we've been working on. And then and so the whole rehearsal hopefully becomes a cohesive thing that has a beginning, a middle, and hopefully a satisfying end. And so when I've put that much thought and energy into it, most of the time the result comes out, you know, correspondingly. Do change anything, right? Change anything. If we're in kind of a slump, like restack the risers, reorder the guys on the risers, mix things up. You know, the classic study where, you know, they went into the factory and they raised the lighting level, and then productivity went up. And so they raised the lighting level some more, and productivity went up. And then they raised the lighting level some more, and productivity went up. And then they lowered the lighting level, and productivity went up, right? So people, if we mix things up, you know, it's enough to get our singers' attention. Like, ooh, something's different. And sometimes that breaks them out of their routine. Before every single rehearsal, I also ask myself a series of questions. So tonight, my guys are going to learn for the first time, blah, 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 this skill. Tonight, my guys are going to learn this. Tonight, my guys will have laughed because of. Tonight, my guys will have had an amazing time because of, ... So I ask myself a whole series of questions, and if I can't answer those questions myself before the rehearsal, I'm doubtful that my guys are going to be able to answer the questions in their mind, whether they're asking it consciously or not, probably not. But I want to make sure that I can answer those questions before the rehearsal ever starts, and hopefully I can tick them off at the end of the night. Not tick them off, but tick them off. Yes, okay. Yeah.
Check them off.
Check them off, thank you. Yes, wording. Okay. And then the last thing, this has been really helpful for maybe about the last 2 years. It's kind of like almost annoying to stick with it at times, but we like just don't let ourselves deviate from it. And that is at the end of every single rehearsal, my music team, my performance team, and I sit down together for about 15 minutes. Every single time we're together. And we talk through the whole night, what worked about this rehearsal, what the guys love, what didn't work, what got bogged down, how was the pacing of the rehearsal. We literally go through and assess the entire rehearsal. We then talk about, okay, so based on tonight's rehearsal, what needs to happen next week? So we get a rough outline of what's going to happen a week from now. Okay, perfect. We really need to do a sectional on this. Okay, you're going to take this section, you're going to take that section. Our section leaders know right then and there that they need to prep for a sectional or a duet, or the performance team needs to prep to do a front row and a riser rehearsal separately. All of that is worked out at that meeting. We also check in, okay, anybody struggling in your sections? Anybody need some TLC? Okay, Tom, you can work with Bob. You're going to meet him at his house, and we're going to address that. And then there's like kind of just open floor. So everybody on the music team is then, do you have any burning issues on your mind? And I really encourage my music team members, like, it doesn't matter how small the issue is, I want to deal with it now, get it out of the way so it doesn't blow into something. You know, how often does like an issue this big blow into something like stupid, right? And so if we can get in front of those, stay on top of them and never let that occur, then life goes on happily, hopefully. And so we've cut back on the number of 3-4 hour music team meetings to like maybe 3 or 4 of them a year. But even if it's like, oh my gosh, it's been a long night, we're all tired, it's raining or snowing or whatever, oh, I want to go home. No, we got to meet. And we just stick with it, and we do it every single week. So that's just made communication better and made us stay on top of things a lot better.
Cool. We do some of the stuff that Rob just mentioned. One other thing that we do is we try to prepare our members for what's going to come up in the next rehearsal, and also we give them a list of when the next song is going to be rolled out. We have a Dropbox website that we put our music up on for our members to get into, so they can download their own music, they can download the learning tracks. And we let them know that on this night we're going to start that new song, and if you could have this ready to go. And it makes the learning go incredibly fast, because a lot of our guys, if you give them the materials ahead of time like that, they'll actually get in there and they'll prepare for it. We try to tell them, we try to put out a schedule before the rehearsal, about 9 days out, about 5 days out before the rehearsal. It says, here's what the music committee has planned for this next rehearsal. And it kind of gives bullets of all the things we're going to cover and about the order that they're going to happen. That makes it great for some of our guys who have to parse out their night, because sometimes they have daddy duty at home on rehearsal night, but they know if they can make it for this section here that's really important, that they'll do that. So sometimes we have to be a little bit flexible with that kind of thing. But we've found that it just increases the learning curve like crazy, and it allows us to be much more productive in working on craft rather than learning notes and words throughout the rehearsal. So that's helped us out quite a bit. Like Rob, we also have I have a very active music team. They don't let me relax for any reason at all. They're always begging for time. You know, can I take the chorus? One of the guys says, can I do the choreography on this song for next week? Please, we got to work on this one section. I got another guy saying, we got to have sectionals on this. Another guy saying, you know, we've got to get the dynamics to this one song. I mean, they're pulling at me like crazy for time, and they're just very alive and very active. And I try to prioritize what's important for the chorus at the time, but I don't think that's normal. I never had that before till this chorus, and now it's like these guys are hungry, crazy to be able to work with the chorus and have, or at least have me give that piece of the music some attention that maybe I didn't notice. I think one of the toughest things for me is that I wear the hat of being a coach and a director. I think we all do. And oftentimes during my rehearsal night, I'm wearing the coach's hat the whole night long, and I never really get into my director performance role where I'm actually performing as a director and doing musical things without stopping them and without correcting every little thing that goes by. And so my music team has required that at least once a night, either sometime after the break or sometime before we go home, that we take 2 or 3 songs and we do nothing but perform them. I don't get to stop them, I don't get to correct them, I don't get to do anything with it, but we just go and we perform the songs, and we videotape those sections, and that's a little embarrassing because I see me doing all kinds of crazy waving things that the chorus doesn't need. And it's very embarrassing, but I do that so that I'll learn and so that I'll be more observant and so that I can do a better job of making me a better director offline without trying to do it in front of everybody. So, any other questions? What else you got? Yes?
I see that all of you apparently have music committees, but you said you didn't have any structure, that you were the directors and you did all the work. But that doesn't sound like that's the case. You have music committee, you have music committee.
Right.
Do you have a music committee?
Yes. We didn't say we do all the work. We said the rehearsal plan.
We do the plan.
You do the rehearsal plan. So I'm in a small chorus of about 17 to 20, depending on who decides to play golf or not. And I think the question that comes from me is, they have been doing the same thing for 25 years, and they're very resistant, incredibly resistant, to have a music committee, have anything but me do the work, unless it's quartetting. They love quartetting. So I would like to put some more structure into this, but that's not my job. They hired me to do the chorus work, not to anything else. So I guess my question is, how do I encourage them to move on?
Wow. I guess that jumps into my head right off the bat is to become a manager, perhaps even the Pied Piper, and get one person to be your assistant or to be your just to be your confidant or to be a lead section leader or something. Give them a real job to do and get one guy on your side, and then move on and start giving each of these guys in the group some responsibility for the rehearsal, and put them in front of the guys, and be more of an educator and a monitor for their success. That's called volunteerism, by the way. It isn't the case you say, hey, would anybody like to do something, and no hands go up. Volunteerism is where you go and get somebody and you say, hey, I need help with this. Would you be willing to help me with this song? And what I'd like to do is I'd like to have you do some directing, or I'd like to have you take this sectional and work on this. And the guy says, well, I don't know how to do that. Well, I'll help you learn how to do it. But I think you have to start picking your players and start building your music team. And it's tough to change a culture. It sounds like what you're up against is a culture issue where there's more desire to play and to just have quartetting, and that there's not a lot of seriousness about being a chorus. And maybe you need to develop that or to question that.
You know, what Gary just described, if you're asking people to help with specific things, it doesn't have this ongoing responsibility, which, you know, if you ask them to be on a committee or have a title, that might scare them off. But you know, so you ask someone to help and they say, well, I can't, well, what if you just did this? Or what if you, and try to get to a point where it's something that's manageable for them, that they will agree to do. And then they might find out that they enjoy it and they want to do more, but just don't take the initial response as of no as that's the end. Negotiate down to something that they're willing to do, and just start to get little bits of help here and there, and just go from there.
They do like performing as a chorus.
They do.
Yeah. And so we've raised that part of the culture up. But at the same time, we don't have any of the committee, section leader kind of structure because they think they're too small. I really believe that's part of the issue. So
my chorus is 19 guys currently. We started a year ago. It's a new chorus, and we have 8 guys that are on the music team, and they're various activities as section leaders. So we have 4 section leaders. We have a choreographer and a visual trainer. We have 2 artistic directors. So we went to people who had never done it before, but who were really good at something, and said, "Can you help us do this?" And we're only 19 of us, and we try to give everybody a job. And the rest of the chorus, each guy in the chorus has a function. We even have a guy who's a morale officer. So we don't have like a program vice president, but his job is to make sure everybody's having a good time. And he's sort of a clown anyway, so it's easy for him to succeed at that. But with everybody having a vested interest in it and having a responsibility, they have skin in the game, and now they really have desire for it to be a good product.
I think I think we have one of the hardest jobs out there as chorus directors. I really do. I like to say that barbershoppers like change as long as it doesn't involve doing anything different. Anybody out there identifying with that? Yeah, right? So yeah, barbershop is like, yeah, let's change, let's do this, let's win a gold medal, right? But we're gonna do that by doing the exact same things we've always done, right? So as long as it doesn't involve doing anything different, yes, change is fantastic. The familiar is really, really comfortable, right? The familiar is really, really comfortable, and the unfamiliar is sometimes scary, or, you know, what are you doing to my hobby? I liked it this way, right? And so when people ask me, Rob, what is your number one job as a director? I always have, the first two answers I think have not changed in quite a long time, and neither of them are musical. It doesn't involve like arm waving or my ear or anything else. I always refer to my number one job as herding cats, right? So it's literally just managing people and keep everybody rowing in the same direction, and yes, you're going off over there, no, this way, and just keeping us hopefully moving in a productive direction. So herding cats is job number one. But job number two, I tell people, is I am a salesman. And I need to sell my guys on every little thing that we do. Whether it's like a new thing that we're doing in rehearsal, to a new song, to a, hey, we're going to do this next year. It doesn't matter how big or how small it is, I need to sell my guys on it. And I need to convince them why this is an amazing thing that we're gonna do. And I mean, almost invariably, if I do a good sales job, yay, thumbs up. If I do a bad sales job, it's rocky at best. And so if I'm looking to introduce a piece of music, it's like, okay, I'm looking for what's the number one hook of this song. What will the guys just go bananas over? Oh my gosh, this song has an insane tag. They're gonna love this tag. Okay, guys, wanna learn a tag? Yes, blah, blah, blah. We like rip the tag, and guys are like high five and everything. You like the tag? Great, we're learning the song next week. You know, so we look for ways to approach it that, you know, we're constantly selling our guys on it. There have been times where I've done a bad sales job on an amazing chart, like just an absolute amazing chart that you would expect all of my guys to love. But I didn't do the right job selling it, and so it never worked. They never liked it. We tossed it, and we learned other stuff. So it really, even with, you know, a music team, anything like that, it's gonna come down to the sales job. In an ideal world, what do you do in life, by the way?
Conductor.
You are a conductor. Awesome. Cool. Awesome. So sometimes some of my music team members, I have some, you know, engineers and architect types and everything where, you know, they come to me and it's like, but I should say something and then they should do it, right? Right, and of course, that's about the last thing that's ever gonna happen, right? It's like, well, I have this position. Because I say it, they should want to do it. No, we must convince them why, we must get them invested in it, and they must know what the benefit is. Why are they gonna enjoy their hobby more because of this? And so I will resort to anything. I'll take guys out to lunch. You know, there are evenings where I've spent the entire evening on the phone with my music team, individually talking to every single guy, getting every single guy behind something. And look for incremental changes at first, and with each new success, we can nudge and prod more and more and more. But no, it's a tough road. It's a tough road. We have a tough job that we do. And sometimes I'll resort to, you know, can we at least try this? you know, I know you think that this is going to be a horrible flop, but can we at least try this? And if you're right, if it's a horrible flop, I promise we'll go right back. But oftentimes people will at least give us the benefit of the doubt, willing to try it. So yeah, I think just my brain's always thinking of how's the best way am I going to sell this to and how are we going to get this through?
Cool. Cool.
That kind of brings me to my question, because I wanted to hear your thoughts on chorus goals and how to motivate the guys that are on the risers. Do you state that kind of goal to everybody that is on the risers so that everybody understands what it is you're trying to do, number one? Number two, Rob kind of sort of answered, how do you motivate them to get them headed in that direction? And number three, how do you measure progress along the way? Through contest?
Boy, that's
In some
one
cases,
of
yeah.
many ways
Yeah.
to measure it. But it is a measurement that we have available to us, right? But what other ways can you measure success? You can measure success by the number of people that come to your shows. You can measure success by the number of performances you do, by the number of people that come out and want to join your group.
Sometimes we'll have a coach come in, and the coach will work with us and get something set and or working on some music, and they'll go away, and then maybe 6 weeks or so come on back, and they'll go, "Wow, that's a lot better than it was." Sometimes that's great input from somebody who hasn't been there every week to find out how we're doing with some things. I think with respect to how do you keep people enthused and working towards those goals, we have to constantly remind ourselves why we're doing it. My particular unit doesn't. We're not aiming towards contests. That's not to say we don't compete in them. We do compete in them, but we keep reminding ourselves over and over again. We're trying to sing to an audience. We're trying to entertain this audience. We're trying to give them a memorable experience. We're trying to create some art for this. And when we approach our rehearsals that way, because almost every one of my guys have been in contests before, we're working very hard to not let that get into our focus so that becomes our focus. But it's on the table. We intend to go compete. We intend to go get better. We want to. Every guy shows up to the evaluations afterwards in the coaching sessions, and we want to sing. You know, of course we want to hear all the things the guy has to say, but we want him to coach us. You know, that's where the real fun of the competition is for this group. So it takes some work. It takes some real effort to keep refreshing in your mind, why am I doing this? Why is it important? What is it we're trying to achieve? And then the other half of that is this particular group works really, really hard to make sure that we're performing at least once a month. So performances themselves become the deadline. They become like a contest. Many of our choruses have lost the desire or even maybe the ability to go out in the community and do very many sing-outs or performances, and they rely on the competition to be the motivation for what they do. But this particular chorus wants to perform at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, and Christmas time is going to be crazy. We've already got 9 performances lined up during the month of December. But that's not because people are coming to us and saying, hey, do you guys know any Christmas music? It's because we are actively going out and getting ourselves these performances, and then they create our desire to really make this a quality product when we go out there.
Just from like a nuts and bolts perspective, if there's a certain skill you want to teach the guys on the risers, and you spend 2-3 weeks teaching that skill, they get it, awesome, let's move on. You move on to something else, and the skill they just learned kind of degenerates. Do you come across that, and how do you overcome that?
All the time.
So
Every minute.
I'd love to field this one. So I've been with my chorus now for 5.5 years, and then for the 2 years prior to that, I was a coach of the chorus. And so they've kind of been exposed to me for 7.5 years. How often does my chorus work on alignment? How we hold our body, how we use the instrument every single rehearsal, without exception. Every single rehearsal for 7.5 years. So do we ever say, hey, got that, time to move on?
But how much time do you spend reminding, I guess?
Well, and sometimes it's not even time, because we've now developed a nonverbal language. Like, we have a very, very vast array of like nonverbal language that we use. So I can literally lock eyes with somebody and just do something like this, and they know what it means, or I can do that, they know what it means, or I can do that, they know what it means. And so we've just developed this vocabulary where I actually don't even have to interrupt the rehearsal to address it, or stop what I was actually in the process of doing. And so sometimes it's not even direct. Sometimes I will actually walk up to guys and start adjusting things and like physically do it, or give verbal reminders. But it's a whole bunch of different ways. But do I ever let go of it? Will we ever let go of it? Probably not. It's going to be something that we're working on for life. And so I think about it as an additive process that we're working more and more and more, and incorporating more in, and not anything that we tick off and move on. Might be, because man, like, another thing that we work on relentlessly, I think those of you that saw the warm-up this morning saw that I had a tuning app on the music stand. That tuning app stays literally on and on my stand for the entire of every 3.5-hour rehearsal. I never turn it off. There have been a couple times where, and I haven't done this in a while, but there have been a couple times where we haven't talked about tonal center. If I don't talk about tonal center with my group for 2 weeks, man, by that 3rd week, we are dropping like a rock. The second you take your eye off the prize, it's like gone. So it's something that we're continually working on. And it's like, yeah, but it should just be fixed and be there forever. And at least with my singers, it doesn't work that way. We just need to constantly keep at it.
Along those lines, a huge lesson to me was, in 2003, I found myself in Dallas to go to watch the vocal majority rehearsal. And this is when they still had all their string of gold medals sampling. And it was a few months before contest. And I had imagined, because they're the gold standard, they were the chorus that taught all of us what a great chorus should sound like. And I had imagined that they had developed this chorus sound, and as soon as they learned a new piece of music, it would just sound like that. This is what they do. And they were working on the contest stuff, and it suddenly dawned on me that the chorus was being taught how to make this sound that we identify with the vocal majority, just the same way that all of us go with each new piece of music and reteach the same things. And I was astonished at that. And I realized that when we go to international, we see the groups at their most prepared, at their best, and we imagine that's what it sounds like every week. But it doesn't. They go through the same struggles and the same need to reteach and all those sorts of things. And then we get to see it all at the best. So that really was encouraging to me, to realize that, the issues that I face as a director are in many ways very similar to what they face, and what Rod faces, and Gary, and everybody else.
Maybe an easier, simpler, shorter way of saying what I was trying to say a moment ago is, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yep.
If you don't address it, that skill, that ability isn't going to hang around. So even if it's in subtle ways, we need to be addressing it. I think to your broader question a moment ago, I would say use all data points available to yourself. Use all data points. So for me, one of my biggest assessors of was this a successful rehearsal is what percentage of the chorus came out to Afterglow, and what was the average length that they stayed at the Afterglow. So if we have an unbelievable rehearsal where everybody's just like, yeah, Barbershop, right? If everybody is just completely fired up, man, 80% of the chorus is at Afterglow and they're staying there 3 hours till 1 in the morning, and if it's a really Rob sucked tonight and you know, so maybe like 40% of the chorus comes out and they stay for like 45 minutes and then everybody goes home. You know, so I certainly use that as a big assessor of like how successful was this rehearsal tonight. And then use data points, but use big picture data points. I know that for a long time, you know, my chorus was like, oh my gosh, last contest we scored 80.7 and now we scored 80.5. Let's all go collectively jump off a bridge together. Contest results and other data points are only valuable when viewed in like big picture, you know, so that we can see trend lines. But looking at 2 data points isn't enough to give us feedback. So give yourself a wide enough perspective that, you know, it's like, oh, yeah, okay, I can see where this is going. And then about goals, spend time together and talk about it. So there are rehearsals every once in a while where I just give the chorus opportunity to talk. You know, how are we feeling? How did we feel about our experience at International this year? What happened? Do we have things to share? And then certainly I in some subtle and not so subtle ways, I encourage us to go out after rehearsal, like the whole chorus goes out together, and we spend time together, and we get to know each other. At retreats, give them opportunities to just talk about what's important, what's not important, what do we want to do as a chorus. And so some of that comes through, you know, organized planning activities, some of the goals, some of our identity. Some of it happens organically, and I think one of the things that happened organically to us, and it sounds very similar to Steve, is that we were for a long time like exactly that, like, oh my gosh, 80.7 and now it's 80.5, let's all slit our wrists. And then at some point, I think collectively our chorus, and again, I don't even know if there was a single event that happened, our chorus transitioned from caring about placement, about rank, about the percent that we score, about the scores that we score, that we realized these are not goals. These are actually the results of our goals. And so we stopped caring about where we placed and where we scored and actually focused on our goals and kind of relegated these to the effects of the goals that we have. And that was just for us a switch that I think was a really healthy one for us.
Yeah, actually for us, I'm very pleased to say that was part of our culture from day one. Our first rehearsal was 19 years ago. At that time, small choruses didn't succeed at International the way they do now. And so we really didn't have any expectation, but the Louisville Times chorus really inspired us. We heard them, we thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to do something like that? So then we got to International, and before we knew it, we were, first year we came in 11th, and then we jumped up to a 5th place medal, then we jumped up to 2nd, and we thought, how in the world did that happen? It was never our plan. We weren't set out to try to win. And that's been our culture all the way through. One of my proudest moments of the chorus and all that time was in Nashville on Friday night, when we had a little medal ceremony, and I handed out to them 4th place medals after we had won the last time. And I wondered, what's this room going to be like? You know, are the guys going to be all devastated? We just came in 4th in the world, which is a great thing to celebrate. But last time, you know, they got gold medals. The chorus was excited, you know, and all the new guys wanted to get their medals. We laughed and made a big fuss over it, and all the guys wanted, you know, they're all proud to, you know, to wear. It was a tough contest.
Oh my gosh.
And nothing about rank is any kind of reflection on the value of what your performance was.
Right.
You know, and I'm so proud of my guys. That was honest to God, that was one of the proudest moments I had, because I didn't know what I might need to do in that room, and I was just thrilled.
Cool.
So as a young director, I often run into the perception of, also being a woman, silly girl, you don't know anything about Barbershop. And I'm fortunate right now to have a chorus that doesn't believe that, but as I go across the borders and coach different choruses, there's a definite age gap. And it's awesome to see the gender gap closing as a director. But what are some of the things that you've run into in your chorus choruses like that, because we have members that are as old as the building that we're practicing in, and we have members that seem like they were born 2 years ago. What are some of the things that you use, the anecdotes and rehearsals? What kind of planning do you do to accommodate that gap?
The age gap? Yeah. Wow. That's a great question. One of the things that we're aware of that youth loves a lot of is tags. You'll see that happening here this week in all the corridors, and especially the ones that ring the best with the most stone in it. These guys are screaming at the top of their lungs to ring these tags. We make sure that at the end of each rehearsal, there's a tag that we do, and some guy teaches it each week. There's a different tag, and then we all sing that tag, and then we have another tag that is sort of the chorus tag, and the tag is it's called "This Is Why We Sing," and we use that tag to close out our evening, and then we have a different guy from the chorus get up and wave his arms to that tag at the end. So that's some of the ways that we've found to keep the youth interested in what we're doing. Also, we give them jobs. We it's kind of like if they're the new kid on the block, they've got to prove themselves to us, and we give them jobs to do, and a lot of variety in jobs, whether it's helping to set up the chairs, passing out the music, making sure things are filed, whatever. And some of these guys, we've got one kid who is just great at social media like crazy. And we were commiserating that some of us old farts don't know much about social media. Couldn't we create something that would keep the whole team, pulled together and informed? Is there a way to do that? And he says, well, yeah, that's real easy. He says, we'll just set up a Facebook page. We'll set up these. He even created a way for us to get pages on our pager, so that whenever we're at a contest, and now things have changed and we're going to have the chorus all go to a different room or something, he just sends out one text and it gets blasted to everybody. And at our annual show, this same nut said, would it be okay if we had the audience part of our texting? We said, like what? He said, why don't we encourage them to do social media if they want to videotape, if they want to use their phones to see our show, let them post it up on their website and let them tag us on it. And then the same thing, if they want to know more about barbershopping, why don't we just put up on the screen here, if you want to know more about barbershopping, text 99000 to this number. And my God, we got about 500 text messages. Well, that just became our new marketing for all of our shows coming up. So we just use them. They're smart people, and they know more about that kind of stuff than we do, and they feel important. They feel important, and it helps. We also lean on them. We lean on them to bring in more kids their own age. We say, hey, this is nice, and you're fantastic, pal, and boy, you've been a great credit to the chorus. Don't you know somebody else that you could bring down? He goes, well, yeah, I can think of some of my friends, although some of them think that what I do is kind of geeky, but I know this one friend that might like. Well, bring him on down. And then when they do, we make a big deal out of it. Yeah.
Chelsea, were you wondering about, as a director who's younger than the members, or in your case, a woman directing men?
The age difference, more the age difference, yeah, as a director.
Yes, I can't really speak to the second. But Rob and I actually both were young as directors. As I mentioned, I started when I was 18. And we were also both young as judges. And so we were facing that sort of thing a lot of the time. And it's a bit of a tightrope, because you want to be able, you need to be able to command the room, but you also don't want to come across as believing you're something more than you are. So it's just a very delicate line to toe. And to be sure, when I was younger, I make a lot of mistakes now, but I made a lot more mistakes then. And I've learned through the years that one of my most important tools as a director, as a leader, is to tell people I was wrong. And I'll do that even if a part of me is saying, I don't think, I want to debate this, because I think I really, there's an argument to be made for what I did. The thing is, a leader knows that in the end, the most important thing is what's good for the group that they lead. That's far more important than being held up as right in something. You do what it takes to heal, to bring the group together and move towards the goal. And so many times that means, kind of falling on your sword and doing what needs to be done to get beyond whatever that issue. And as long as, that saying, it doesn't matter, as long as, if no one cares who gets the credit, it's amazing what can be achieved, something like that. So as a director, as a leader, if you keep that in mind, it doesn't matter, as long as you do what's needed for the group to move on.
I think for me, so my chorus tends to skew a bit younger, but we do have all ages represented. And I think I'm quite verbal to the chorus about how proud I am that we have a diversity of ages and that makes us a richer group. If we only had this segment of ages, or if we only had this segment of ages, or only had this segment of ages, I think we would be nowhere near the chorus and have nowhere near the richness that we do in terms of the personal relations we have, or even the sound that the chorus is able to produce, having a full range of people there. And so I guess I acknowledge the strength of it, and I acknowledge how much I'm happy that we have all of this. I tend to also be much more focused on what is the criteria to, what's the big overriding criteria for this chorus is the level of dedication, the commitment to the chorus, that age is an irrelevant factor. You could be 10 or 102, like if you have that fire to, just help build this chorus together, that's what bonds us together, and age does nothing to separate us. And as I said, the age range for me is a strength, and one that I acknowledge regularly. I try to make sure that I let my members know, every single one of them, how much I value their contributions, and specifically what about their contributions I value. And I do value it, I just wanted to make sure that they know it. And for each person, it's going to take different ways. We all feel praise in different ways, and so, get to know your members, but let them know how you feel about them and that you value them. I challenge myself to have a minimum of one meaningful interaction with every single chorus member, every single rehearsal. Every single rehearsal. And a meaningful interaction is not, hi, how's it going? And we walk away. That's not a meaningful interaction, right? So some meaningful interaction, like minimum of one per rehearsal for every single member of the chorus. I want them to know that I've noticed they're here. They're giving up a night of their life, and that I love the fact that they're here.
And it's important to point out, often we focus on, as smaller choruses, what are the disadvantages? Those big choruses can do these things, all the fancy dance moves, all this sort of thing. But there are things that we can do that they can't do. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those things. You have the close personal relationship with each guy. You couldn't possibly do that with 150 people every rehearsal. But you can do that with 30 or 40 or 50.
Right.
Regarding just the level of respect, I think one of the things that, or just something that was big for me was there are some books on education and certainly books on other kind of management stuff. Like I forget what the exact title is, but it's a book that everybody reads in education, The 100 First Days of School or something like that. You know what book I'm talking about. If, as a director, if you have not read that book, read that book. It talks about things that are so like, oh yeah, duh, okay, if I do this, this is going to have the impact, and that's why your class is going absolutely berserk right now. Well, it's not a classroom full of kids, right, but we're still herding cats. So a lot of those things of, if I'm standing at the door greeting every member as they come in the door, welcoming them to rehearsal, the dynamic in my rehearsal is going to be way different than if I'm in the corner madly trying to hash out a rehearsal plan and they're coming in and all pandemonium is breaking loose. I've set up a very, very different expectation and mood at the beginning of the rehearsal. So there are just little things like that. If you haven't read that book, read that book, and just, I think about it in that way of little things that we can do that affect big changes in the behavior of the group. And then if you do encounter something where somebody's not giving you respect, don't ignore it, deal with it. So, hey, I know you didn't look like you were having fun tonight. You want to go like have a beer together, let's talk about it. And find out what's going on, and maybe the guy just had a bad day at work. I don't know, sometimes that, our members have things going on in their life that we don't know about. And I'm sometimes shockingly reminded about that. Like at International this year, my chorus shared stories that involved things that were going on in their lives, and none of us had any clue. Like for about 10 stories, all of us are like, what? We had no clue. And it's like, there's stuff in life, and so I think just talk it out, deal with it, get in front of the problem.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, so when you bring in new members, you all have systems for, people just know certain things, you can give you a little cue, and then people will just get it. How do you get new members on board with all that stuff? How do you get them up to speed?
Well, right off the bat, we have first of all an interview process. When a new guy comes in, and we're pretty convinced that this could be a new member. He's not just a guest visiting or a snowbird that's just there once or twice a month. We're pretty convinced he's going to be a member. We have a gentleman in our music committee that takes him aside and sort of interviews him and kind of explains to him what the chorus is about, what kind of expectations we have of ourselves for our rehearsals and for our preparation, our music, and he goes through a pretty elaborate conversation with the new member. It lasts about half an hour, and tries to make sure he's covered all of the important things. And then he hands that off to somebody on the music team to do a musical audition. Sometimes I'm that guy. And I'll meet with the gentleman before rehearsal the following week and take him through a pretty extensive musical audition on his breathing, on his artistry. He's supposed to bring something that he can sing without having to have much help doing that. He's welcome to bring if he's got a boombox he wants to sing along with or whatever, that's fine. But I want to experience his musicianship. It's extensive. We find out what his range is. We find out if he can harmonize. We find out if he can learn some choreography, and if I show him some choreography, can he do it back with me? We take him through some emotional drama to see how that affects his singing. If we tell him a story and he's to sing the same song in various ways, we take him through that. But once we get that all set up, we assign him to a buddy. So he gets assigned to somebody in his section. If, let's say, he's a bass. In fact, I've got one right now that's a potential new member, and he gets assigned a buddy, and he stands next to that guy, and that guy helps teach him our language, helps teach him what things mean when we talk about how we're singing or where we're placing our sound, or we might even drop some names. We'll say, well, Deborah Lynn says da 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 da, and he'll go, who's Deborah Lynn? And we'll explain to him. That buddy will explain through the rehearsal what's going on, and in doing all that, he's also by some osmosis. When he observes how we're singing, when he observes the musicianship of the chorus itself and of the singer he's been assigned with, they just start to take on those characteristics. They start to take on those singing attributes. They start to stand the way that we stand. They pay attention when it's time to pay attention, and so some of that is just osmosis. And then if once the guy, when it really feels like, okay, he's one of us, he knows what we know, he can fit in right now and start performing with us, then the whole we're a small group, we're 19 guys. we all interview him, and then we all vote on him, and it has to be a unanimous vote to have him join the group. But by that time, he's already one of us. We already know he's going to be a member of the group. So it takes a little bit of time, but a lot of it's very structured and very, very targeted to make sure that he can get up to speed fast with what we're doing.
Similar, I think, was the main thrust of your question about after the audition has happened and he's a member, how he picks up on all the little things that we've taught over the years that he wasn't there for?
That too. I'm interested in the process of getting him from, all right, I want to join, to now
Okay,
I'm a member.
That whole process, okay. So, yeah, if we see someone that's come out for like a second visit, we'll approach him and say, hey, you're out twice, does this mean you're interested in joining, sort of thing. And if he says yes, then we get him into the audition cycle, and we audition very quickly. We'll have him, he'll do 2 songs. They're contrasting songs, like a fast song, a slow song. If it's a lead, we try to give something with some lead harmony in it. And typically they get 2 weeks. They get the learning tracks and 2 weeks to prepare for the audition. And the reason for that is, we will learn music, kind of complicated music sometimes, and we want to learn it fairly quickly. And if someone takes 6 months to prepare 2 songs for an audition, they're just not going to keep up. And so we built that right into the audition. He'll get a chance to rehearse a few minutes with the audition quartet he's going to sing with, and then he sings for a panel of 4 of us, and we discuss it. And then the outcome of that is either, he's passed, that's great. He's got some things he needs to work on, but we think he's going to get there, and so we talk to him about that, give him a second chance. Or if we think he's not going to get there, then we talk to him right then and have a very difficult conversation, but we don't mislead him.
Right.
So he works hard, and then ultimately is unsuccessful again. That's not fair of us. So as hard as those conversations are, we do that. And there's also a visual audition that they don't have to prepare anything for. We teach them some moves. And, we're a goofy bunch. I couldn't help but think about something when you were talking. And my apologies for just a little sidetrack here. But David McEachern, our visual guy, and Pat Brown, who works with him, were both in a production of Fiddler on the Roof. And they were was it the Cossacks, the Russian police, and they do this dance. They're kicking the legs out, that sort of thing. So this very earnest young man, very keen to join the chorus. He came and auditioned. He did everything. He was doing just fine. And at the end of the audition, of the actual audition, David turned to Pat and said, and they said, okay, there's one more thing for you to do. And they demonstrate this Russian dance for the poor guy. And he goes, could you show me that again? And of course, they dispersed it laughing. But, that's very typical of our culture. We do things like that.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Similar. I think our audition process, this is the first time I've used this audition process with a group, and I think it works for us now. We give them a song, we give them learning media to a song, and it's a song that matches the level of the repertoire of the chorus. It's the first time that I've done auditions that way. But we want, and furthermore, it's a song that's not in the repertoire. So it's a song at the level of the repertoire, but not in the repertoire. So I want to see what they can learn without any sort of assistance. What can you do on your own, and can you successfully sing memorized in a quartet a song at the level of the repertoire? And so our audition song is a David Wright arrangement. It's not one of the psychotic David Wright arrangements, right?
That really limits it. Oh, you might want to edit that part out.
Yeah, so it's not one of the psychotic David Wright arrangements, but it's still a David Wright arrangement. It's still challenging, and the built-in nature of the challenge not only shows us that you can sing music at the level of the chorus, but that you're willing to jump through at least a decent-sized hoop you're willing to make a pretty significant, investment of time to learn this thing and to go through with the audition. So people that are you're like, that feels like a little too much work, perfect. This probably wasn't the chorus for you anyway. And then they sing it in front of the music team with the 3 other section leaders. They have to get it pretty much note, word, rhythm perfect. I don't care about errors of the moment, that if we were to have them sing it again, they wouldn't do that again. I don't care about nerves either, if it's obviously a nerve thing, So, and then from there, I think it's a combination of what you said, is that part of it is osmosis, going back to your question, because we don't let things go. We keep referring to it every single rehearsal. They will pick up the stuff that we've been talking about just because we've never left it. And we keep bringing it up. And so there's that part. But then one of the big kind of, I think, mantras of our chorus is, if you make the individual singer a little bit better, then the ensemble gets a lot better. And so there's a real focus on investing in the individual, and that comes from, a vocal technique perspective and a performer's perspective. So we will buddy them up. I will try to get at least one hour-long lesson in with every new member that passes their audition, just to indoctrinate them into the cult, right? So, because there are things that each of our courses do, like, okay, so we align ourselves this way because of that. No, your diaphragm is not there. Like just clearing up a lot of things and just making sure we're all on the same page. And then on top of that, then continually reinvesting in the individual. So before every international, for example, we divide our chorus up into quartets. And so this year we had 21 basses come here to Nashville 2 weeks ago. So we had 21 quartets this year. So most leads and baritones had 2 quartets. There were a couple that got away with 1 quartet, and then of course each of the tenors had 1 million quartets each, right? But each quartet was given the assignment of, you're going to rehearse the contest set on your own time. And that can be show up early to rehearsal, rehearse at break, rehearse after rehearsal, go rehearse at Afterglow, go to one of the guys' houses on the weekend and rehearse outside rehearsal time. Whatever you want to do is up to you. But each quartet rehearse on your own time, and when you feel like you have a performance-ready version of the contest set in the quartet, then you sign up with me for a 2-hour coaching session on the contest set. And so then myself and the performance team coached all 21 of those quartets. And so we're really focused on the individual. And then, so I'll do stuff outside rehearsal time with members of the chorus. Steve Scott, who also sings in our chorus, does stuff with the chorus inside rehearsal time. So he'll take members out of rehearsal and do one-on-one lessons with them during the rehearsal time. I tend to do that outside of rehearsal time. So really focusing on the individual continuously and focusing on education.
Wow. Cool. Anybody else?
I just had one closing question from my perspective. You guys have developed your really nicely formatted audition processes and entry levels and culture where you have your 19 guys decide who's going to be number 20, And from a perspective outside of that, how do you contain the communication to the new prospective member to where the entire chorus is encouraging to that member to continue to develop and not member, prospective member, to continue to develop, but yet your process is the final call. How do you contain that with your membership?
That's tough. All of our guys are outgoing. In fact, all 19 are A types. And it's crazy, but they're outgoing. They want to meet the new guy. They want to encourage him. They make jokes with him. They ask him how he's doing. They tell him about performances coming up. They make sure that he's got his music, access to the music that he needs to learn, and they're just crazy friendly that way, and I think many barbershoppers are anyway. I think it's just the nature of this hobby is that we go out of our way to create a fellowship. So what's sad is when you get somebody like that, and we just had one gentleman who had been coming down for about 5 weeks, and finally gave him his audition, and it was painfully clear that this individual had not had any real vocal training or couldn't really sing a melody all the way through in the same key, and there were so many basic things that were there that I had to say to him that this isn't for you, and he said, thank you. He said, I don't want to waste any more time. But as he left, the guys in the chorus felt really sad. I mean, they said they felt really badly that they'd gotten to know him, and he's a good guy, and his plan is to go get some private voice lessons and to try again maybe in a year. And I said, that's awesome, and I hope he does that. But he's got he's about in his mid-60s, and to be starting that at this part of his life to go get voice lessons and to try to get on board with a team that's pretty advanced, it's going to be a little bit difficult. But it's hard. It's hard to say goodbye to anybody that way. But that's the program. That's kind of the way we do it.
Rob, how do you see Central Standard doing that?
I think for us at first, we actually literally, like bullet point, this is what we are going to do, just because there was a need to do a better job. And so we literally went through ground rules with the chorus of we will do this and we will not do this. Like literally, so one of those like thou shalt things is everyone must have guest radar on, and at any moment we should never ever ever see a guest by themselves. Like just being like,
right.
Hi, what's up? And so literally it was everybody is responsible to have guest radar, because sometimes we like seeing our friends and it's like, hey, how's it going? Blah, 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 and suddenly we're catching up and having a great time, and there's this poor guy interested and just kind of hanging out awkwardly in the corner, and then leaves at the end of the night and never really had a meaningful interaction, yeah, they sing well, but never said a word to anybody. And so, we just made that a absolute policy that that's a real strike against us if ever we can see that some guest is not engaging with our membership. And so it started out that we literally verbalized the process, the procedures, the rules, the everything. And then it eventually morphed from actually having to spell it out to now it's just part of our culture that we love interacting with guests. But it kind of took setting the ground rules to create a cultural shift.
Yeah, we had a similar experience. We're still actually working on that. And it was always a little shocking to me because the guys are just very friendly guys.
Right.
But I think they were, like you say, they get there on the Monday night and they haven't seen their buddies since last Monday. Sometimes some of the guys travel long distances to kind of rehearsal, so they just want to chat with each other and quite unintentionally, not meaning to exclude some, they would. So we've been working hard to...
And I think a follow-up question to that, and probably true of all three of our groups, is that the closer our chorus family becomes, the harder we have to work to be inclusive to everyone else.
Yeah.
Because, at this point, my chorus probably has I don't know, a couple thousand different inside jokes that we refer to. Yeah. We have stupid, beyond stupid little traditions and random things that you would be like, what is this chorus doing? Are they nuts? Yes, we are. But these little traditions that we do that it makes kind of this feeling of almost an exclusive little club. And we definitely don't want to present ourselves that way. So the tighter we get as a group, the harder we need to work to make sure that nobody's feeling left out.
We want to thank all of you for coming tonight and being part of this. On that email list, if you have questions you want to bounce off of us, please do that. And if you'd like to include the rest of the the rest of the participants of this, and that I think could start a very healthy conversation for everybody to find out what the other guys are doing. Being a director, as Rob said, is a very lonely position, and it's very easy to feel like you're the only one that has these problems, that you're the only one that can solve them. And oftentimes you wonder, how do other chorus directors deal with this? Or is there anybody out there I can talk to about my issue or my problem that could help me figure out what to do? And I have found over the years that having a direct line with some of my pals who are also chorus directors have been fantastic. And I'll call them up, and sometimes they'll just tell me to stop whining so much. They'll just say, "Don't be such a baby. Come on, you know what to do." So, but sometimes you need that friendly ear out there who knows exactly what your life is like and what you're going through. So, I encourage you to take advantage of that. I'll put that out in an email to everybody so that you'll know who everybody is on that list. And I'd like to thank Rob and like to thank Steve for being part of tonight's Directors Roundtable, and I hope you guys had a good time.
Thank you.